This is the Fun Belt Podcast, part of the Believe Network.
Hosts, the Dusty Thibodeau of Warhawk Report, Jeremy Harper of Howlraiser, and Shane Metlin of the Daily News Record.
I think it's potentially a very good week for the Sun Belt.
But I'm just kind of going off on a random rant. It's just frustrating. It's Shane, it's in the intro. Do you feel that this week is going to be a good week for the Sun Belt Conference, knowing that it's an absolute cluster between the four teams that could wind up being in the conference title game?
It'll be a good week for somebody. Somebody's going to feel good after this one. Not everybody, though.
But somebody. Yeah.
There'll be a few teams that aren't feeling good at all by the time Saturday's over. But, yeah, some at least a couple teams are going to really be celebrating.
2 teams at least.
Yeah,
exactly. And
expert.
So here's the breakdown of it all.
Okay.
Raging Cajuns,
All right.
win baby win. If they beat ULM and Marshall, if they beat ULM, they're in.
Yes.
If Marshall loses, they get to host.
Ooh.
For Marshall, if they beat James Madison, they're in.
Okay.
If they win and the Cajuns lose, the game's headed to Huntington.
All right. Wow.
Then, also on the East, Georgia Southern. Got to win. Got to have Marshall and Louisiana Lafayette lose. And South Alabama has to beat Texas State just to get in.
Okay.
And then it gets interesting.
That's not more interesting than that.
South Alabama can get in if Louisiana Lafayette loses and Georgia Southern loses to App State. And South Alabama has to win their game as well. They're against
they play Texas State.
Texas State on Friday night.
Yeah.
They can host the game, though, Jeremy, if they beat Texas State by 80 points for point differential.
Yeah.
And Marshall beats James Madison by 100 to host.
Seems like slender odds for that scenario to come to fruition.
I just love that it's down to an absolute cluster to determine the champion of the Sun Belt.
Hey, there's nothing certain in the Sun Belt but entropy. And that's where we are now, in a state of pure entropy, which is we'd have it no other way.
So we look back at how we kind of got into this situation.
Okay.
Yes, Jeremy, Arkansas State won 15 in a row. Okay, there, we talked about the game.
15 in a row over the Warhawks. The Warhawks may never win. This might be the best team the Warhawks have fielded in a long time. Their most opportune moment to pick up that win? Nothing. You get nothing, Tibbs, and you like it.
Okay, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Ahmad Hardy did surpass
15 wins in a row is a lot of wins. I mean, that's like, count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's a lot of wins.
I'm proud of you for being able to count that high, Jeremy.
It's required to get into vet school.
That's never going to get old, by the way. So,
I mean, they haven't won since 2010. I mean, that is a long freaking time, Tibbs, to have a football team not beat a rival. I mean, you would think you'd prepare for that, but I don't know. I guess maybe not. I'm done.
Okay,
I mean, just another one-score win for Arkansas State. I mean, what a magic season for Arkansas State. 6 wins by 1 score. That's awesome. One of those being against ULM, which we've done 15 times in a row.
Shane, you know what this reminds me of? When we were at Sunbelt Media Days and, we try to have some back and forth banter and interviews with teams.
Yeah.
Not Arkansas State. No, that was Jeremy just going rogue and having a good old time with him and his buddy Butch.
Completely fanboying there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he asked for autographs, got pictures. It was the damnedest thing.
I didn't trust you to handle Butch in the proper way. It takes a delicate hand to approach Butch Jones, and I didn't know if you had that in you.
Jeremy knows how to deal with the A-State coaches. You know, he does it behind the scenes. He takes the brunt for us through the DMs so that we can have a successful show and a successful media day.
Yes.
Have you noticed, though, that we haven't had any A-State people on the show?
That's true. Well, I don't want it to be all about A-State, except for this 15 in a row win thing. We could talk about that for an hour.
Not for an hour. I've got other things to do.
All right, I am done bragging about A-State tips. I'm sorry to derail this. I just, I needed to have my moment.
Ahmad Hardy did surpass the 1,000-yard mark on the season.
Yes, he did.
With his 200-yard rushing game on the season.
Just an amazing specimen, by the way.
He's going to be in the SEC next year. I hate to say it. I really wish he would stay in the G5, stay at ULM, but I just don't see it happening. Jalen Rayner, 3 touchdowns. It really looked like he got his touchback, Jeremy. He was not missing on the passing game. And then when the Warhawks did kind of drop back, Zach Wallace ran up and down the field, including a big 57-yarder where I think everybody on the Warhawk defense missed the tackle for the 57-yard gain. It was tough to watch, knowing that it was right there. Really, the one play I think that was, or the 2 plays that were the big differential. Hardy fumbling when it looked like they were going to punch it in because he just doesn't fumble, and for whatever reason he did on that play. And the other one being the mysterious roughing the passer call to extend the drive that was kind of the go-ahead touchdown there in the third quarter, I believe it was.
Well, quite frankly, neither team seemed to be able to get out of its own way on that day. There was a lot of dumb fouls, a lot of the turnovers for ULM didn't help for ULM. There were a couple calls that, against the Red Wolves that we thought were suspect. The roughing the passer call was a little bit stingy. You could probably make an argument if you really tried. But yeah, it wasn't a very clean game from both teams. They kept kicking each other in the nuts. And it turned out to be a good game. It was a good game. It was close. ULM, as I predicted, cannot score more than 23 points. If you score more than 23 points, you're going to win. And that's exactly what happened. But I tell you, the pieces are there for ULM. They just need, what ULM really needs is a shutdown wide receiver. And they just don't seem to have that yet. So maybe next year. I'm holding out hope that Hardy stays with the Warhawks. Back up the old NIL banking truck. Give him what he wants.
But you know what? If he doesn't, and I'm not as tied in as Tibbs, obviously, so I feel like it could go either way. But if he doesn't, at least you go into the portal recruiting season telling these running backs that are in the portal, hey, look, you're going to get the ball. You can run for 1,000 yards here. We have true freshmen do it. You can do it. So, I mean, I do think ULM's in a good place to continue to build regardless of what happens there.
I feel like Jeremy's pun that he wants to say so badly, and it actually segues into our next game, is that ULM will win when hell freezes over. Just like it did in Boone there, Shane, where they were throwing snowballs at each other. There were people that were upset that they had to endure the cold, endure snowball fights. What did you see from that game as James Madison fell to the fight in Sean Clark's?
Well, I mean, as the game went, it was kind of shocking almost how much it duplicated JMU's trip to ODU the week before. They got off to a fast start. They look like, they're poised to maybe go up 3 scores early, have a really comfortable lead, and then just, a total cluster of a second quarter, end up going into halftime behind. JMU was able to make some plays in the second half against ODU. They had, a deep pass really was like one of the things that got them going. Had the same thing happen in Boone, have a deep completion, end up having it called back, illegal formation. The offense never really got anything else going. in the second half, and they just didn't have enough to do it at Boone as opposed to ODU, which, as rough as the season has been for App State, seems like Sean Clark's teams are always playing close to their best this time of year. And I think there's just maybe some concern that the same mistakes showed up again for JMU 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, you know what? That game out in Boone with the snow looked a little like a MAC game. I thought I was watching some action when I checked it out.
Yeah, there was some snow. I mean, they got it cleared off the field and off the roads and everything. I mean, it didn't affect much game-wise, other than, we can talk about it. There's snowballs coming out of the stands onto the field while they're playing. There's some players sometimes getting hit, like as the plays are going on. There's stuff flying through the air while the ball is in the air. So, it was, I hadn't really ever seen that. And the repeated announcements over the PA system to stop doing it didn't slow anybody down from chucking them out there.
Yeah,
because that always works when they're like, don't throw anything on the field. Yep, we won't.
Yeah.
There seemed to have been some post-game kind of, I don't know, ill will after that because of that snowball effect. Are these two becoming like arch enemies?
I'll put it this way.
All right.
2022 in Boone and 2023 in Harrisonburg, two of the absolute best college football environments I've ever been around. Like pregame, postgame, during the game, everything. Both fan bases were great. Everybody who was there, I think, had a good time, even if your team lost, and both teams lost. The home team lost in a heartbreaker, like both of those years. It was great college football, everything you could want from it. Saturday was different. There was a lot of anger, I think, on both sides in the stands. Like, I don't know exactly where it came from, but like there was anger, bitterness. It was a lot different feel between the fan bases and, I think even players and coaches too. And I don't know exactly where it came from, but it was sort of surprising that it was like that.
Is that the environment we're going to see this week in Monroe when Louisiana and the ULM take on each other?
Who knows what's going to happen? It's hunting season. It's Thanksgiving weekend. It's an 11 o'clock kickoff. Unlike when Texas State came for that 11 o'clock kickoff, it will not be monsoon raining. So it's always a crapshoot. I think that there will be a lot of Raging Cajun fans there for the game, knowing that they have a lot on the line as far as being able to win officially the West and potentially host the championship game. But Jeremy, you're distracting us from looking backwards. We always want to look backwards.
Well, you said Texas State, and I thought, well, that would be a good segue into the big Georgia State upset over Texas State. Tibbs, did you see that?
I saw the score. I saw some of the highlights there.
Yeah.
Georgia State flipped back to Christian Vallejo at the quarterback position, and he shined. 285, 3 touchdowns. Jordan McLeod had a pretty good game, but 2 picks really were the big difference in the game there. In addition to that, the Panthers able to get some running game going from Freddie Brock for 133 yards. He also had 3 touchdowns, just like the quarterback.
Yeah, that's crazy. I tell you what, Georgia State, they came out of that game with just steaming with confidence. They played very well against Arkansas State, maybe could have won that game. And then they come out and just totally DDT Texas State, especially in the second quarter. My goodness, where has this Texas State team been all season long? Or has it always been there, Shane? And it's finally just kind of coming together a little bit.
I think the most important or impressive thing to me is that they did it on the road. Yeah. I mean, I think if this had happened in Atlanta, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as big a surprise. But for them to make the trip to San Marcos, which has been tough for people to play, and just put up that many points, like that was impressive. And we've said it all year long. They got a late start with Del McGee coming in, basically having to cancel spring football and everything else. Like, we may be starting to see what Georgia State's going to become.
And we've seen Georgia State play pretty good football. They don't play winning football. They don't have all the pieces yet. but maybe those pieces are finally coming into shape. Hey, Tibbs, is Texas State cooked? I mean, you're close to those guys. What's wrong with them?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they went diving into the river that runs through campus there when they reached bowl eligibility, but I don't remember if it was Shane or who talking about, is that really a good thing, knowing that the expectation was there that they were going to run away, win the West, and potentially be in the CFP.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this excitement really comes from, but yeah, it's definitely something.
Is it a little embarrassing to announce that your head coach is a $2 million a year man or whatever the contract turned out to be, and then he loses to Georgia State at home?
Yeah, that's definitely not a good look, because that's going to make the Don look like you were mashing the panic button that he was, going to get poached. My assumption would be that the contract has a huge buyout in it, and that's another reason that they wanted to kind of rush it through, was in case there was an opening that he would be a candidate for. That's why they pushed it through as quick as they did. I'm never a fan of one good season and give the guy an extension.
Absolutely not.
You did it once. Let's see what you can do whenever you have that next recruiting cycle.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to me, maybe they did it because maybe they anticipated Tulsa, which is Kenny's alma mater, opening up, which it did a few days later. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because who else is coming after a guy who's 14-10 for $2 million? Like, it seems like you're bidding against yourself with this move. And like Tibbs said, one really good season. This season's been a disappointment, and they're one loss against a pretty good South Alabama team from being 6-6. That's and for Kenny being 500 overall in the Sun Belt since he got the job, like I was surprised that they went that far above what kind of the going rate in the Sun Belt is.
Yeah, my only thought is maybe, we spoke to him during Sun Belt Media Days. He's a very personable guy. He's and kind of engaging, not flamboyant, but what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of just sort of an approachable guy. Maybe he just does well with the boosters. And the boosters were like, hey, we got to keep this guy. I don't know. But yeah, absolutely not the season that Texas State wanted this year. And kind of a unfortunate occurrence to give up 52 points to a Panthers team that hadn't won a Sun Belt game all season long. So that's pretty crazy. Hey, we were kind of hoping that Troy might make things super interesting last week, but it didn't really happen, did it, Tibbs?
They tried. They definitely gave it the good old college try. Actually led a little bit in the first quarter of the game before the Cajuns really just kind of rolled in that game. I'm telling you, I really like this Cajuns team, and the fact that they can just kind of plug and play. When Woldridge went down, they brought Chandler Fields back off the sidelines, who had been kind of waiting in the wings to get his shot again. 323 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's all he did, Jeremy. Just 323 yards.
Yeah, I think that, at least on my end, I don't think you thought this, but I thought, well, maybe the Cajuns take, a couple steps backwards, not having Ben Woldridge around. I mean, he was having such a great season. Chandler Fields has been put in park for so long. It's like he came out hot. He's nice and warm. I guess they kept him stewing because he's got the hot hand. And here they are ready to face ULM to seal the deal coming up this week.
A game that was not very exciting, Jeremy, but it did keep the Jags in contention for the Sun Belt Conference West.
Yes.
South Alabama and Southern Miss. The return of Gio Lopez. Only 193 yards, but 3 touchdowns. Fluff went off, though, having 104 yards and 1 touchdown, including a long of 59 yards. It's good to finally see Fluff's name in the box score more and more for that rushing attack for the Jaguars.
Yeah, and not only that, it was kind of exciting for like a quarter when it finished 8-0. And then it was like 11-14 for a while. So we had some strange scores. Is there a team in all college football who wants this season to end quicker than Southern Miss?
Kennesaw State.
Yeah, they seem to be a mess. Did you see that their head coach showed up to the next game after he was fired? It was like in the sort of the procession when the team comes marching into the stadium. He was there giving out high fives.
High fives and hugs. Not
Awkward.
Shane, would you be able to do that? Would you be able to show up the next week knowing that you're now just Joe Fan instead of the man that's the head coach?
I don't know. I mean, I think that was maybe a unique circumstance. I think maybe he has a son still playing. I don't.
Ooh.
He'd been around a while. I don't know that he necessarily was the guy who wanted to make the FBS jump, which is probably the reason he got fired. Like if they're still playing FCS, he's probably doing okay. So different situation than Charlotte, where Biff Poggi shows up for practice while he's fired. That was weird to me.
Hey, just showing up.
But that's a Biff move.
Totally.
You know, they talk about it being a boss move. That's a Biff move.
Yeah.
Through and through.
Biff move is a great term to add to the lexicon here.
We'll have to keep an eye on more Biff moves.
When a coach does something just totally off the wall, that's a
Biff move.
That's a Biff move.
Like that. Not doing a Biff move, Tibbs, would be Coastal Carolina.
All field goals all the time, Jeremy.
Hosting Georgia Southern, they got a chance to sort of, put at least a little bit of shine on the season by getting bowl eligible. Totally lay an egg with those 2 field goals against Georgia Southern, 26-6. Just like Texas State, is Coastal Carolina just kind of cooked?
Shane, that's for you on the east side.
Man, Shane, come on.
I don't know. I mean, Coastal to me, I wouldn't necessarily put them in the same category as Texas State. Texas State's been a little bit of a disappointment. Coastal, if you told me 5-6 for Coastal right now, I'd sort of believe it. The weird thing though is just, they go 1 week where, Ethan Vasco looks awesome. He's a great quarterback. This offense is cooking. And then the next week he's, like you said, 2 field goals. Like it's just, you don't know what to make of him. And I think with Tim Beck, you kind of expected more consistency offensively.
Yeah, isn't he some sort of quarterback whisperer? I mean, isn't he kind of the offensive guy?
Yeah, and it's crazy that I guess Grayson McCall set the standard so high there at Coastal. It's weird to see 3 passing interceptions for Coastal Carolina and neither quarterback, Ethan Vasco or Noah Kim, hitting the 100-yard mark. I feel like even a bad Grayson McCall outing was at least a 250 outing.
Yeah, but here's Georgia Southern. They're kind of an inconsistent winning team. They seem to lose games that they're not supposed to lose, and then they win games that when they really need it most. They didn't really need this game, but man, Coastal didn't. They didn't rise to the top. Coastal started the season 3-0. I remember earlier in the season, guys, they were like, "Wow, is Coastal for real?" They seem to be for real. They were winning some games, but man, ever since losing to JMU, Shane, they just haven't had their heart in it.
Yeah. I will disagree that Georgia Southern didn't have, much to play for. They're still in there. Yeah. I mean,
that's true.
If Marshall loses this week, they're in good shape to make the championship game. So
yeah. Sorry.
They actually had a lot to play for.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you guys something. How many wins or how many losses for ODU do you think, out of the 7 losses they have, how many have come by 1 score?
I'm going to say 5.
All right, Shane?
I think it's 6, but
6. It is 6 states. They are so close to a 10-win season. Instead, they are 4-7. They have 6 losses by 8 points or less this season. And it happened again today, or happened again against Marshall. If you're part of that fan base, are you just eating Tums in despair?
Probably a little bit, especially since their basketball team's not off to a good start. And it's maybe the one school in the Sun Belt where a good start in basketball might overshadow what's happening in football. It's kind of a basketball school, but I wonder what we're going to hear and see about Ricky Ronnie if his seat's getting a little bit warm. It's just been never quite getting over the hump for him there. And there's some challenges. And, his first season, they didn't play. They opted out of like the COVID year. I think maybe that lingers a little bit, like as far as like trying to rebuild everything. But yeah, it's some tough luck, but at some point you got to wonder if it's going to be a little bit of pressure on him there.
I tell you one thing though, and I know I'm kind of a fanboy for this guy. We're going to see him in Jonesboro this week. Colton Joseph, another 2 touchdowns on the ground, leading rusher, 158 yards rushing. Good God, this kid. I mean, he's keeping Old Dominion in those 1-point games, that's for sure. But here we are, Marshall, 8 wins now on the season. About to have a 9-win season if they can get this last win in. I kind of just, I don't know about you, Shane, but kind of snuck up on me. Suddenly Marshall's just a really good football team.
Yeah, I mean, they've been playing really well. Huff, doing well enough to maybe get some looks other places, apparently.
Tibbs, do you think that's a real thing? Tibbs, is that a real thing, you think? Because he came out like yesterday. I was like, it's not a real thing. Blah. But
how many coaches have you ever heard say, yep, talk to them. I'm highly interested. They're interested in me. It's always a deny until you are standing at the podium next to Jeremy McClain in Southern Miss, wearing your black and gold tie and talking about how much you love the Sun Belt as a conference, how familiar you are with it, and how you're ready to spread your wings as an eagle and allow them to soar back into relevancy in the Sun Belt Conference.
That is my favorite, when a new coach comes and they start talking about the tradition that they so much enjoy at the school, like they've been a part of it for centuries. But yeah, I don't know. That'd be an interesting Sun Belt on Sun Belt piece of violence. Does it happen, Shane? Is there real fire here?
I don't know. I feel like maybe this run has gotten Huff, gotten the fans back on Huff's side.
Yeah,
at Marshall. But at the same time, I honestly have no idea if he ends up there. At the same time, though, I could kind of see like him almost like, how good would it feel if he took all that heat last year, turns around, gets them into the Sun Belt Championship game, and then goes to the last place team to go do it there. Like that would be sticking it to him in a way. And I don't know if he's looking to stick it to him, but there's definitely been some tension, I think, on both sides at Marshall.
All right, I guess we'll just have to see. Anyway, exciting championship game coming up. Or championship level games coming up. Championship setup games. How's about that coming up?
Yeah.
So, Jeremy, before we shift gears into second and short.
Ooh, gone. Yeah.
It is basketball season, and we know that Shane is always gloating because it's always a James Madison Duke that is on the Player of the Week ballot and getting the press. And it's no different this week when Bryce Lindsey, the first guard to win it of the season, had double-digit scoring 3 times last week for the redshirt freshman to help James Madison wind up getting third place in a Bahamas tournament there?
Boardwalk Battle in Daytona Beach.
Ooh, okay.
Same thing.
The Boardwalk Battle.
Yeah.
I knew it started with a B, okay?
Yeah.
Is it just me, Tibbs, or is everybody in sort of a beginning of the year tournament right now?
Except for ULM. They are in what is now known as a MTE, a multi-team event.
Okay, I've been seeing this acronym MTE, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Multi-team event. Well, how is that different than a tournament?
It's a simple round-robin draw.
Okay.
Yeah. But you get to play an extra game or two if you're involved in one of those.
Oh, okay. Huh. Is this new?
No, not really. I mean, the
I think
tournament
given what the name is.
events, but basically, if you get a group of teams together on a neutral location, or sometimes a team hosts like 3 or 4 teams, but you get them together for a not usual home and home, then it's a multi-team event.
This sounds like some AAU shit right here.
Basically.
So yeah, I've seen a lot of disappointing outcomes this week. You know, teams not quite following through, except for James Madison, who seems to be finding some success. Have you guys seen any success?
No.
No.
It's been a rough start for men's basketball, at least, and really on the women's side as well. There has not been that marquee win. I mean, I know that we talked last time about Georgia State getting the win over Georgia. I don't know how good or bad Georgia is to know if that's a win or is that a brand win, so to say.
Yeah.
But I do know Marshall has the female women's basketball player of the week. Alyssa Hayes set a new career high, 31 points in a overtime win against Tulsa last week.
Damn, 31 points. Good work. Glad to see somebody scoring some points for Sunbelt basketball.
I will say on the men's side, I'm liking Troy more and more as the season goes on. Like their losses are to Arkansas and Oregon, and they didn't get run off the floor necessarily in those games either.
Yeah,
and they got a pretty solid win against UTSA that I think is going to be decent. Like they got a pretty good haul in the portal. They may be still getting it together, but by the end of the season, that might look like a pretty good non-conference win for Troy. So, like I said, nothing that like jumps off the page like when App State beat Auburn last year, but it's I don't know. I think it may be solid, but not great Sunbelt basketball.
Jeremy, kick us off with a little second short for the finale of the Sunbelt Conference regular season slate.
This is week 14 of second and short, guys. Oh my God, it seems like it's gone by fast, but it also seems like it's taken forever. All right, you guys know how second and short works. I bandy about the games. We talk about some of the nuts and bolts, and then a little commentary from Tibbs and Shane Metlin, and we move on. We try to keep it 2 minutes apiece. So, gentlemen, the last one of these. Are you ready for second and short?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess I'm never going to get that energy that I'm looking for, but that's okay. We'll manufacture the energy as we go along. Guys, why is this game being played on Friday? That's what I want to know. It's not being played like on ESPNU or ESPN2 or ESPN or anything like that. This game is being played on ESPN Plus on Friday. I'm talking about Texas State Bobcats 6-5, South Alabama Jags 6-5. It's at 2:30 p.m. on the Plus. The Bobs are a 1-point favorite according to our sponsors at BetOnline.com. Shane, why is this game being played on Friday on ESPN Plus?
Yeah, I mean that's not a TV game. Does make it, but I don't know. I guess that's Thanksgiving weekend for you.
Okay. Yeah,
it's the Iron Bowl.
Okay. All right, Tibbs, who's winning this game? The Jags or the Bobcats? Both have a lot on the line here.
They really do. I think that knowing that the door is slightly cracked, I think the Jaguars get it done to give themselves a chance to finish second in the Sunbelt Conference West. I just don't think that they have all the pieces that fall into place for them to win the West or play in the championship game, but definitely get the win over the Bobcats to close out the season.
Yeah, the Bobcats, they're trying to avoid that indignity of at first meeting playoff expectations by just turning in a 500 record. That's not going to sit well with Bobcat fans. How do you think this game shakes up, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, I think, South Alabama, especially with it being played on Friday, like you mentioned, like they have something to play for. They still have a shot. It's not like, if this was a Saturday night game, maybe you already know by the end if you are still in contention for the championship. But South Alabama is right now. That's a lot to play for. Not to keep harping on Texas State and Kenny's contract, but, for them, I feel like 6-6 is a massive disappointment and kind of just, so I don't know how much that motivates the players, but you do kind of look at it for Texas State. Like they really kind of got to win this one just to kind of salvage this being a decent season.
Yeah, so the Jags, they have an opportunity to at least close out their end of business. They can't close it out. They don't control their own destiny. And what's funny is that we've got kind of a bookend here the next day, because the first game of Saturday is between the Louisiana Cajuns and ULM Warhawks. Bowl eligibility alert. ULM still going for that 6th win. It's at 11 a.m., guys. ESPNU. Cajuns and the Warhawks, they get the prized broadcasting platform. Cajuns are a 9.5-point favorite. They win. They are in. Thibodeau, how's this game going to go?
It's the most most thing ever for the Warhawks to pull off this victory.
Oh,
They do it. I really do not know, because this is a really good Cajuns team that wants to host that championship game. They want to win the West. They want to showcase for Coach Dez that he was the right choice. He's ready to lead his alma mater to victory, hoist the big trophy from Keith Gill. I like the Cajuns, especially with 10 points, to come in and take care of business.
yeah, this is the most consequentially game in this. This is the most consequential game in this rivalry since maybe forever, guys. I can't remember the last time this game had so much on the line other than hate and pride. Shane, from your end of the spectrum, what do you see?
Well, like you said, I mean, Brian Vincent during his conference call this week was saying the same thing. It's been a long time since ULM has played a game the last week of the season that really meant something, that they can go to a bowl game and they can, affect the championship race. I think you're going to see a good showing from ULM, but I think at this point in the season, with them a little banged up, maybe Louisiana just legitimately has too much talent. I wouldn't say that like week in and week out for ULM, but that we didn't see much of a drop off in quarterback since the Woolridge injury. I think Louisiana's going to finish this out, get to the championship game, and have a good chance to, as Tibbs said, hoist the big trophy and kind of get back there where they were before making that transition from Billy Napier to Mike DeSormo.
Now, let's just keep in mind this game is being played in Monroe. It's not always easy to come away with a win in Monroe. And they likely have freshman of the year, Sunbelt freshman of the year, Ahmad Hardy running the ball. So can't count against the ULM Warhawks just yet. Bowl eligibility alert. Coastal Carolina, they're 5-6. They're taking on the Georgia State Panthers. They're 3-8. They're kind of a zesty 3-8. It's 1 p.m. ESPN Plus. The Shants are just a 1-point favorite, and I don't know if they even deserve that 1 point, because, quite frankly, Shane, the Chanticleers look like they're sleepwalking to me. It looks like they're kind of ready to hold up the tent. Am I not looking into that correctly, Shane?
No, I mean, I think I see that a little bit, and you don't see it at all from Georgia State.
No.
They lost a couple close games late in the season. We're sitting at, 2 or 3 wins? Like, they could have folded up, and they absolutely did not last week. I don't think you're going to see them do it this week, even though they don't have a bowl game to play for. I think they're playing to build something, and, I'm not going to count on a great performance from Coastal. We know they're capable, but, if I had to just put my money on which team's going to really show up, I feel better about Georgia State right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like the Panthers just really enjoy playing for new head coach Del McGee. Do you see it that way, Thibodeau?
Yeah, and they definitely got some swagger after getting that big win last week against the Bobcats. Now the key question is, can they do it at home? I think they can. I like Georgia State and Del McGee to end the season on a high note as he gets ready to hit the road recruiting for the 25 season.
Very, very professional ending to that. I like it. All right, Southern Miss Eagles. Guys, they're 1-10. They're taking on the Troy Trojans, surprising 3-8, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN Plus. The Trojans are a 17.5-point favorite, playing a lot better lately. They took the L last week, but playing against the Cajuns, you might end up taking a few L's. They're probably not going to take an L versus the Eagles, are they, Thibodeau?
I think they will on the spread. That's a lot of points for a Troy team that's been questionable and a Southern Miss team that's really trying to go out on a bang for whoever their new head coach is that may or may not be hailing from Huntington, West Virginia. I really like Troy to win the game, but it's a lot closer than 17 points.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you guys see a little bit of life in the Eagles, which I think is pretty cool. Shane, do you see life in the Golden Eagles?
I think to the degree that Tim said that maybe losing by 18 or more is a little much. Like they haven't gotten blown out a lot this year, but they've lost a lot of, 2 to 3 score games. Troy, I fully expect Troy to win this one outright, but the line does seem a little big. But maybe we're looking at a Southern Miss team that just wants to get this one done and see who their new head coach is going to be and are ready to move on.
That could be true, but I will say that Troy looks like a team that could be trouble for next year. So, good job by Gerard Parker at a decimated team is building something pretty good up back there in Troy. I don't expect them to be down for long. Next game, the unlucky Old Dominion Monarchs against the lucky Arkansas State Red Wolves. Monarchs 4-7, Arkansas State Red Wolves 7-4. Arkansas State Red Wolves with 6-1 score victories. The Monarchs with 6 1-score defeats. I gotta know, Thibodeau, who wins there, the luck or the bad luck?
I like the weirdness. I love the weirdness.
I know you do.
I'm taking Ricky Ronnie and the Monarchs. I think that the Red Wolves will not have the same luck of shutting down a freshman offensive threat, just like they did last week. Oh, wait, they didn't last week against Hardy. He had 200 yards.
Yeah, he was great.
I think Colton Joseph does it again, and this time they win the squeaker in Jonesboro.
Ooh, okay. Well, Shane, do you see it the same way? We know that Old Dominion had a lot of games out there where they could have won. They could have easily had a winning season. For a time, was on top of the Sun Belt East. Are they going to come into Jonesboro? That long? Remember, Shane, they've got that long distance, and you have said again and again that long distance plays a part.
Yeah, ODU, Arkansas State. They've been through so many games like this. They're both due for the opposite result, right?
They really are.
Yeah. I think ODU scores late to go ahead and wins this one, wins by, maybe a touchdown, maybe a field goal. And we see the opposite result. I just, it can't keep happening the same way for both of these teams. Like they're both due for something different.
I'm afraid that one of these teams is matter and the other team is antimatter. And what we're going to see is like a tear in the fabric of the universe at kickoff. That's what I'm afraid of. It's the physics of this game that worries me. But I will remind you guys that the Red Wolves have not lost in Jonesboro this year. So keep that in mind.
First time for everything.
Bowl eligibility alert. Appalachian State, they're 5-5. They won't get their 12th game because they had to lay it off on Liberty after the big hurricane. Versus Georgia Southern Eagles, a team they do not like. They're 7-4. It's at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN+. The Eagles have plenty to play for. And they are 2.5-point favorites. So, Shane, 2.5-point favorites for the Eagles. Is that enough?
I mean, I expect it to be that close. I really don't have like a feel for who's going to win this one because there's not really one team trending one way or the other. Like, I think, Georgia Southern obviously is pretty tough to beat at home. App State's tough to beat at home, has had some bad luck on the road. So Georgia Southern has that going for them. But the App State team I saw last week, I think is perfectly capable of beating Georgia Southern. Both teams have so much on the line. I think it's the best game of the week. I just don't know where it's going to go.
So this hasn't been a great year for Sean Clark. They picked to finish first in the Sun Belt East. They struggle all year on the gridiron, and it's compounded by a Hurricane Helene that comes over and cancels an important Liberty game, in addition to really decimating the town of Boone. They do seem to be playing better football now, Dusty Thibodeau. How do you feel about them coming into Statesboro?
Too little, too late.
Ooh.
I think Joey Aguilar has had his struggles. I think that the Robinson effect of him not being there for Aguilar as his top target. I mean, App State's a good team. Don't get me wrong. Even a bad App State team is still a pretty damn good team. But Georgia Southern has a lot on the line. They got to win in order to try to have a chance to get into that Sun Belt Conference title game. Helton knows it. He's got them rallied up. They're all waiting in the wings with their floaties to go for a cannonball dip into Eagle Creek. And Danny Reed will be there leading the charge.
And let's face it, Tibbs, you've always admired the quarterbacking of J.C. French. You just like the guy, right?
I do. I think he's a great quarterback. I think that he struggled a little bit trying to find himself and find kind of the pace of the college game. But once it started clicking, that was it. He hit his stride.
Yeah, the battle between French and Joey Aguilar should be pretty good, right? All right, last game of the regular season, guys. This is it. And it was going to be a game with a little more substance because if James Madison had, closed escrow last week, we might be talking about the Dukes making a run at the Sun Belt East Division. Didn't happen. Still, it's a battle between 2 8-3 teams, gentlemen. The Marshall Thundering Herd, 8-3, as I said, versus the James Madison Dukes, 8-3. It's 7 p.m. on ESPNU, so you get the little extra exposure. The Dukes, a 3.5-point favorite, but man, that Marshall Thundering Herd is playing some excellent football. I'm going to throw it to you, Shane. Shane, do the Dukes deserve to be a 3.5-point favorite in this game?
I mean, deserve, I don't know. I mean, the number's coming from somewhere. Those Vegas people are crunching them and coming up with that. But, man, Marshall, they've won 7 of the last 8. This is obviously a huge game for them. And even in winning 7 of the last 8, they really just blew it at Georgia Southern. They had that game won. This could be like a team looking for 9 wins in a row. They've really been playing great. JMU almost feels like they're manufacturing motivation at this point. They're talking about like winning, going undefeated at home. They're talking about still having the opportunity for 10 wins with the bowl game, things like that. But it just feels like a little flat, like as far as like just trying to come up with something to say you're playing for. 10 straight sellouts at JMU is in serious jeopardy. That streak ending with the Thanksgiving crowd maybe not being quite as big. I don't know. I have a hard time picking against Marshall, and it's not so much that like, oh, I'm so down on JMU right now. It's just I have a real hard time picking against the Herd.
So it looks like Shane is trying to make enemies of the JMU crowd, and that's fine. He's got a history for making enemies.
Yes.
But do you share his sort of worries for the Dukes on this?
I do, but I also feel like the outside noise of Huff and his future with the Herd is enough of a distraction for James Madison to kind of know what their future holds, know where they are. It's at home that the Dukes are able to pull out the close win and send Marshall to Lafayette for the Sun Belt Conference title game.
Wow. Hey, let's remember that it was when Jamie Chadwell started flirting around with Liberty a couple of years ago. That's when the Chanticleer started falling apart. Yeah, so wow, bad timing, I guess, for Coach Huff to be in talks with some possibly Southern Miss. He denies it. But yeah, that's a good point there, Thibodeau. That is a very good point. So yeah, this will be an intriguing game. And I think we're finished here with second and short. You guys did a great job. But I think Shane at one point said that, what would you say was the best game here, Shane? It was, what was it? Was it Appalachian State and the Eagles?
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a really competitive game.
I feel like there's like 4 games here that are just really great games. The Louisiana games, between the Cajuns and the Warhawks, that's a great game. This Bobcats Jags game has so much, riding on it. That's going to be a great game. I don't. The Trojans and the Eagles aren't going to be a good game. But again, Appalachian State and the Eagles are going to be a great game, and the Thundering Herd and the Dukes. That's going to be a great. I feel like there's at least 4 or 5 games here, guys. That's just going to take over your Friday and Saturday. What do you think?
And for that, we're thankful, Jeremy. We're thankful for the show. We're thankful for great football. We're grateful for it all. I'm grateful for the two of you still showing up.
Oh, that's a good way to end it.
Yeah.